There. So now everybody can hear me. So the way I look at it is there are a couple of things. 80% of patterns are continuation patterns, 80%. But everybody's always trying to pick a top. The thing is that usually a top isn't a V. It takes a while. It's like a super tanker. I cannot draw. That's a ship. Yeah, that's why I failed that kind of art. But the thing is that usually it takes time to build a top. And then the beauty is when it breaks, it usually creates an oversold condition and you get another chance, that snap back to resistance. So just keep that in mind. That's what I'm watching in here. So definitely, definitely it's about the snapback, but it's also looking at the long-term perspective. So let me show you what we're talking about. So in here, you see that you had an uptrend, but I like to game it by what made the markets go up. And what made them go up is the bond market. So the bond market started to crack. So then you look for a top. You can still stay long, but it starts to get choppy, as you see. Just gets choppy. And then you see that you can draw some kind of trend line. You got to be able to draw that trend line before you even think of trying to pick a top. I just can't stress that enough. You can't do that until you can draw a trend line. So if you could draw this trend line, which we did, like that, look at that. It broke and then back tested twice. Back tested twice. But the thing is, if you're trying to find a top or a bottom, you better have it back test at least once, but you got to be able to draw a trend line and you got to be able to have multiple points of contact. So that's the more reliable way. Now, I know there are a lot of people that look at this and say that's a reversal pattern. Well, the more vertical the trend line being drawn, the less reliable. As you see, this wasn't a real top. It just had a little twerk to the downside. It's the more horizontal, the more reliable a topping pattern is. So just just keep that in mind. So you got to have those trend lines. So definitely you can put that on a weekly chart. But the best way is to look at the bond market. The bond market on a monthly chart, pretty wild. All of that. Now you might say, yeah, but look at this. It wobbled all around here. Usually on a weekly chart in something like the bonds, I'd use a 200. Oh, that doesn't work so hot either. But really the best way is to watch that trend line. And that's a lot of points of contact. So when this broke, it doesn't mean you had to short right here, but it meant that the uptrend was done. Plus, the beauty, the real way you knew it was done was when it had that snapback rally and couldn't even get to the trend line. So, definitely keep that in mind. So that's what I watch when I look for reversal patterns. You could have done it this way with a head and shoulders, no doubt about it. And that's how I sort of look for reversal patterns. So just keep that in mind. And the other thing, so there's your reversal. Now, what's a continuation pattern? Well, there are a lot of ways to do it. One of the ways to do it that we've talked about a lot is to look for this. So a reversal pattern to me is when it breaks. It then has a sort of thing down, gets oversold. That rally back might back test the trend line. Then you get another sell off. That's on a daily. But within that, you're going to have little waves that are even tinier. So when this broke back here, when you look at this trend line, it's pretty impressive. That's your trend line. But within this, you're going to have little nooks and crannies like that. So then it depends on, are you talking about an hourly, a 15-minute, a daily? So on the longer term, it's broken down. On the shorter term, it's going to have little whipsaws, and then I try to time it using an hourly chart. And that's the way I look at that. So definitely consolidation is like that. To me, the best consolidation is when you can make a bull or a bear flag. So a bull, bear flag, or a Brecher ledge. Now, a lot of times those are only on hourly charts. So a bull flag, I did a chart patterns mastery on it class. Bull flag, bear flag. See on the upward slope. But like I said, the more horizontal, whether it's up or down, the more important. So a Brecher ledge is a bear flag with a horizontal trend line. So that's the way I look at that. And that's how I find reversal patterns. Most of the time with reversal patterns and continuation patterns, the reversal pattern results in some kind of this. So you're going to miss the beginning of the move. A lot of times it's an art, not a science, picking the reversal pattern. It's the moves after the reversal pattern that are so important. And those are continuation patterns. Now, if you're like, yeah, but this went net down in here, but that's like slop. That's incredibly difficult to trade. So you look for those trend lines. You could even take this one right here or this one. But the key is when this broke on the left, you're going to see a lot more continuation patterns on the downside. That's the big deal. I always go at least one time period farther out to look at the trend. I mean, you can say I can say all I want that it's a top or a bottom, but when you see this decisive break, I think it's pretty obvious the trend has changed. Sure, you could say it happened here, but that's the beauty of this. That's like a head and shoulders. There's your top, and then you see the top, and within that, there's little bear flags on the way down. Now, on the way up, when it touched the trend line here, it had little bull flags on the way up. So that's what I'm looking for, is those type of patterns. Now, inverse head and shoulders, a lot of people know I love using that too. So let's go into that. So I'll show you what we're talking about. So let's take Apple. So what do you see in here? Well, that's a tough one. Because of all those wiggles, you don't call that a top, you don't call that a bottom. Very difficult to try to decipher that on a daily chart. But on a hourly chart, you could see this. So the stock is started to go up down here. So we'll put this, as you see, that's a 200. It sort of worked. So when it got back over the 200, there were a lot of bull flags. Pretty cool. So right here, right there. So it got over it. It consolidated. But within that, after it's changed the trend, there were a lot of continuation patterns. So really the 50 you can use as a good guide. Is it perfect? No, you see that. But within this cross, you find a lot of consolidation patterns. On the way down, you're going to find them on the way down. So let's go over them right here in Apple. So all I'm saying is, if you want to use some kind of guide, like it rallied against it, you could look within this for a tiny reversal pattern. So one way is candles. So if you see a green candle and then it goes up the next day and closes down here, bearish engulfing, or I call it a big red candle. You usually see a big red candle is sort of the end of a move, or a big green candle. If you see that, then you can look for a continuation pattern under it. And if you see this, so you know it already failed. then you can look for the consolidation patterns. So, I mean, that's how we did it back then. Then when it got over this, all here, it kept having overbought in a downtrend, whether it's the ATR trailing stop, which is that red line, or the red line, which or this, which is the 200. Now, if you change this to the 50, yeah, you're going to see you get a lot more whipsaws, a lot more whipsaws. So you could say it worked in here. I want to be sure I have it right. There. We can say all we want that it's in here, and I'm going to do this again. I want to double check. Yeah. But you're going to miss a lot of the move that way. So my first priority is to look for patterns. My first priority is to look for patterns. So right here, you don't see it in Apple at the moment. It did get under the ATR trailing stop. And Henry had a good seminar on that. And that's one way you find them. But then you look for the continuation patterns. So you're going to miss the top. You can see it in hindsight. But if you go here to Apple on August 26th, I don't know if it's going to let me. Yeah, right there. So that corresponds to that. And within that, you're going to see little waves on the downside. Now, it's not perfect like that. Don't get me wrong. That's what stop orders are for. But you're going to see waves like that on the downside. And when I see that, all I'm looking for is consolidation patterns. So I don't feel like trading every second Apple. But when I see that bear flag, the only problem with that is there's your bear flag, is it broke and stopped at resistance. That's the biggest problem right now. So everybody's question is it going to reclaim everything? And that's what I mean by working off an oversold poorly or well. Well, this oversold worked it off pretty well. I mean, pretty poorly. It broke immediately, formed a bear flag. But this one wasn't that oversold. But the key is it going to reclaim there? And that way it's working off its oversold pretty well. That's why you need to wait at support to see how it works off its oversold condition. And that's what I'm doing right now. So let's give you more, for instance. So let's go into QQQ. And I want to show you a daily chart. So here's the QQQ on a daily chart. You're going to see this little potential top. But that's when it gets tough. Is that a consolidation formation because it is over everything? Or is that a potential top? Well, if you're going to play this either way, you need to go to a shorter time frame. And that's what you have to do in here. And when I look at that, the first thing I do is I'll go to an hourly. Does that tell me anything? No. This is one of those things that it's a better sale right here at 313 than it is right now. Because right now it got oversold near support. So there you go. We want to see how it works off its oversold condition. And that's what we're going to be doing all day. Because right now it's somewhat oversold down here. So that doesn't mean it can't stay oversold. But the point is I'm going on probability. And when I see the probability in here that it's oversold at support, I have to see some kind of tell that you're going to have another leg down. Now, when it's like this and this is oversold, the next thing I do is I'll just go to an hourly and a 15. Does that tell me anything? Not yet. If it tells me anything, it's that this is overbought on a 15 and oversold on an hourly, and that's when you back away. Now, theoretically, that would be a good entry point on the short side. Now, this is after a potential top. That's a big top. That's about eight points. I'm just taking that as like a rectangle. So it's going to be a better short once the direction is known. Right now, you're not sure. If you want to play little wiggles, sure, you can play little wiggles. But I just want you to realize you got to wait for that decisive break one way or the other. And the verdict's still out. So when I see it like this, and let's say I'm bearish, but we did go to some support right in here and got too oversold. That's what I mean by selling in the hole. That right here, you got oversold, and now we got to see that. Is that going to fail? So then I'll go on a different time frame. I'll go to a 15, which is overbought, and I'll go to a 5. And what I see in there is you still can't tell, because this could be a little inverse head and shoulders. Not really a reversal, just sort of a waffling in here near the resistance here and the support down here on the left. So you're sort of stuck in a zone at the moment. And at least that's what I'm seeing. Doesn't mean it's going to stay like that, but I'm just telling you it's stuck in a zone right now. So basically, then I look at tells, more tells, and I don't have them at the moment. I'll look at this. I'll look at advanced declines, which really haven't popped. Now, that's intraday. That's a 1-minute chart, but a lot of times that can help you with all of this. So it'll help you anticipate if it's going to break or not. At least that's the way I look at it. So basically, if I'm looking at the QQQ again on this page, and I see the advanced declines make a new low, then the chance of this getting all the way back here are very low. So then you have your next leg down. So like I said, though, the verdict's still out, but it just looks like if that breaks, it's going to break that and then go to here. And that's what a lot of people miss, is once it breaks that, the direction is going to be known. Then you look for little consolidation patterns within it like that, because the ultimate objective is that width, which is 8 points. That gets you to here. So you don't have to, and the first break a lot of times creates an oversold condition. It's all about the consolidation after the break. I mean, that's I think the best way to do it that I know of. I'm trying to find more examples. As you see in here, right now you can't exactly tell, but there is something you can notice in here. And the thing you can notice is the NASDAQ is worked off, and I'll take, instead of the QQQ, I'll take the NASDAQ. And we'll take an hourly, which is oversold, a 15 that got overbought. So you could say that's resistance, but the whole point is we're looking for consolidation patterns. And this is one of those things that right there, you're going to know that's the top, and then you can play consolidation patterns to the downside. If it broke up, yeah, you play consolidation patterns to the upside. That is a reversal pattern. We call that a W. Now, a lot of times we call that a Stewie because we can highlight it and it looks like Stewie from Family Guy. But there's a W pattern. And here we go again. It's extremely difficult to buy it here when you are bullish on it here. Now, that's 600 points. But guess what? You made the next 600. So when it decisively broke out, then you look for shorter term consolidation patterns till proven otherwise. So I mean, and it that's how I do it. So let me give you some more examples. So first thing I want to do is find you a really good trend stock. So you could see when it reversed. So I'm just going to go into some of the monster stocks. Let's take Microsoft. We know Microsoft has had a heck of a move. So is that a real good bottoming formation? Not really. Is this starting to form a bottom? Well, that's not really a reversal because it's sort of a continuation of the trend. It's really sloppy. But once it got over that, so I'm not saying that's a bottom, but once you got over that, then on a short term chart, there were little ebbs and flows that were bull flags on the way up. So once this got over something, so you could say that blue line, that's the 9 EMA. Then you look for consolidation patterns. Now, the one thing is you're going to be wrong a lot if you do that short term of trading. So you're going to get stopped one way, stopped another, but you'll make more on the direction, on the correct direction, than you'll lose getting whipped around. So that's the way I do it in here. I'm trying to see another one. See, the problem is these are just really sloppy moves. So, but that was a more defined top. Look at that. And that's the thing. You don't always have to find a trade in all of these stocks. There's a top. You got that looks like the NASDAQ now. You didn't know if it would break up or down. Once it decisively broke, you got that little twerk right here where you had a chance. And within that, then you look for a short-term reversal pattern within the big reversal pattern. In fact, one of my favorite things, you're seeing it here, is when a stock breaks up and then it forms this. So it's got a W pattern. But at the end of the W pattern, it has like a bull flag. So then it has a bull flag within a bull flag. This is more a reversal within a big reversal. And that was a beautiful thing. And the biggest thing to notice, your objective eventually is that width. I can't tell you how many times that works. 20 points. 20 points. And so it worked. Now, the biggest thing to watch on here now is if you don't see a defined pattern, you don't have to trade. But what I do is I look for tops and continuation patterns on multiple time frames if it's not clear to me. So you see Microsoft now on a daily. That sure looks like a top to me. So let's take it on an hourly. Yeah, there you go. Microsoft looks like it's really hard with earnings coming out. If earnings weren't coming out, you'd say it looks just like Microsoft did back here, that it formed a rectangle. It broke. It's too oversold right now. I usually take an hourly and a 15 to look at that on the short-term basis. So you would love to see it snap back to here. I'm saying without earnings. So without earnings, I'm saying all things being equal. So now what you're doing is you're looking on how it works off these oversold. That's the biggest thing you're looking for right now, how it's working off that oversold. And then you can look for the reversal patterns up at this area. So there's a reversal pattern and then a break, and then you're looking for another reversal pattern or a consolidation if it breaks there. So many of them are reversal patterns within reversal patterns and then consolidations after a break. So that's what I watch all day. And I watch them on different time frames according to if there's a break. So if I see sloppy stuff, I'm not going to touch it. If you see this defined break right there, then you could go to a shorter term chart and find if there are reversal patterns within that. Right here. See that break? That was the beginning of the year. Well, on the right, sure enough, you could draw a trend line. Now that's a 4-hour. So a lot of times I'll look at, like I said, daily, hourly, 15, but I'll look at a 4-hour. And within that, I guarantee you're going to find consolidation patterns on the way down. And if it's not a type pattern, you know what? You don't have to trade it. So let's take another one. Let's take right here. And I'm going to go into on demand because this doesn't go back enough. So we're going to take this day right in here, February 23rd. So I'm just going backwards in Thinkorswim. Yep, I wish it went forwards. We're just going to go to the end of the month. And I'm going to put an hourly chart in here. There's your break. So there's their decisive break. And now I'm going to put in a 15-minute chart. And you're going to see there's your bear flag here. And that was about it. It was sloppy. But once you had the break, yeah, you had one consolidation pattern. That's tough. But at least you see the topping formation. So I just want you to identify the topping formations. And they're clear as day. But the problem is once they do it, everybody gives up and says they missed the first amount of the move. It's the direction that matters, not the price. Because these have gigantic moves, these $200 stocks. So any questions for me? Because I'm supposed to only be on another half hour. I mean, another 3 minutes. So any questions for me? But the whole thing is to look for when you can draw trend lines, whether it's upside down and you have this. I'm taking Microsoft upside down. There, Microsoft upside down. I think you see a mile away that little W pattern or Stewie pattern. Now, this is upside down, so I'm just showing you that it works on the upside and the downside. Look at that. There's a trend line. So those will show you some reversal signals. And then after they reverse, you look for the consolidation patterns. So that's why right here, right now, is this a top? Now, I'll tell you right now, it's going to lull you to sleep. It's going to lull you to sleep right in this area where you're not sure. Or you're not sure if this is a top or if this is just a consolidation on the upside. When it gets like this, do you anticipate? Well, you can see if a consolidation pattern works, but the better short is when it breaks and then snaps back to test it, because then you have a backstop. Yet the prior support becomes resistance. So right now, what's the verdict? The verdict's still out. You have a lot of NASDAQ 100 earnings out tonight. I mean, this week. And that's a big nut to crack. If you want to go up, those better go up. You saw Netflix and Tesla go down, big components of the NASDAQ, but you have the Apples and Microsoft sort of holding. So that's what I watch in here. And I just wanted to show you on how I'm always looking for these tops. And if I don't see them on a bigger perspective, which as you see, it might be, if you don't see them on a bigger perspective, then I'll go to a short-term chart when I'm on in the room. So take care and thanks for being with me.